Hi, everybody. It's Susan with a look at the Aquarius New Moon this week. It's occurring on Saturday, the 21st, but it could be overnight, the 21st to the 22nd, or in the 22nd if you're in Asia or South Asia or Australia, for example. This Aquarius New Moon is also the Lunar New Year in Asian countries, so Happy New Year if you are from Tibet or China or Vietnam or any of the other Asian countries that celebrate this. It's the year of the water rabbit. Rabbits are really lovely people. My daughter is an earth rabbit, and they're very gentle, very kind people, but just a wee bit shy and timid, potentially overcautious as well. So if you are a rabbit, or if you know any rabbits in your life, then do take some chances this year. Don't be too shy and cautious. It's a good year to make some big changes in your life, so that'll definitely take you out of your comfort zone. But nobody else can live your life for you, so go for it and enjoy your special year. So this is actually a bit of a breath of fresh air. It's very much going to recall the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, which is a new era type conjunction that happened at 0 degrees of Aquarius in December 2020. So go back over the past 2 years and reflect on all of the different things that you have understood about your world, about the world, and about your desires in the area of Aquarius, wherever that is in your chart. And you can start to see some developments in that area of your chart. Something new is taking shape. And this will be a kind of a nudge, a gentle reminder, perhaps a not so gentle reminder, but I think an inspiring one, because it's actually an interesting new moon with a lot of energy behind it to create a new start, a very fresh, a new way of moving forward in your life. This is a particularly good new moon from the point of view of Aquarius and Libra and Gemini. The air signs get a lovely support, and especially because now Mars is moving direct at this new moon, and so is Mercury. So everything is starting to unlock, unstick, and it feels like things are moving forward. And the only thing left to move forward is Uranus, which is in Taurus, still retrograde until the day after the new moon. So by the 22nd and into the 23rd, Uranus will be stationing direct and slowly moving forward. And so really the rest of January is going to feel like momentum building. The momentum is already starting at this new moon, and especially because it's conjunct Pluto. And that conjunction with Pluto gives an extra emphasis, an extra potential for drive and willfulness and a feeling of really going for it. It's also because we see that the new moon is actually trining Mars. And so the trine to Mars is giving an extra bit of incitement to change, incitement to grow and expand. It's very inspiring, I find. A really lovely new moon, because also for the added inspiration, it's in a sextile to Jupiter in Aries, which is already inspired and now is being ruled by Mars direct. Of course, as with everything, there are some drawbacks. And so we do have also this moon in a semi-sextile to Mercury, and that Mercury is also in conjunct Mars. And because Mercury is ruling that Mars, it matters a lot. It's something that we want to really pay attention to. That can cause some strife or friction around issues that you will see later on might affect you depending on where your ascendant is in various parts of your life. But you might find that there's a bit of an edginess around this new moon. Now, that edginess can give you an energy for new starts and something that inspires you to move forward, or it can also give you an edginess that you might end up using to settle scores or to potentially have difficulties with engagements, any kind of agreements or debates and discussions that you might have with people. Now again, that will depend on the rising signs. As I mentioned, it's very good for the air signs. I think there's going to be this real feeling of relief. But because we're talking about this Mars in Gemini, that's also going to give you an extra oomph that you might need to keep in check for another few days until Mercury clears this inconjunct. And that's especially so because we've got Pluto conjunct this new moon. So I really do see this new moon as setting up a stage for a kind of initiation before we see Pluto moving into Aquarius. So we've already had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction 2 years ago. And then Pluto is going to go for 20 years, 20 plus years into Aquarius for the very first time on the 23rd of March. This is going to open up a whole new world to us in so many ways. I'm going to post part 1 of the Pluto and Aquarius video later this week. And I'm also going to discuss this at the interactive workshop that I'm doing on the 22nd around this Aquarius New Moon and setting intentions for 2023, trying to understand how it affects you, trying to understand also what's going on in the world, because there's an enormous amount of change, and all of what we understand to be the institutions that we've relied on, these multilateral institutions that we've relied on since the Second World War, are all being challenged now with Pluto entering into Aquarius. And so we're really starting to see flashes of that already. Just also one thing that's really interesting is the Chat GPT, which has really taken off, and interactive artificial intelligence that's now open source on the internet. You can literally ask any question and get an incredibly articulate response to this question. And that Chat GPT started in 2020. So around the time of that Jupiter-Saturn is when we start to look for new trends, because that was the first Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in air signs that marked 200 years of these conjunctions coming forward in air signs, whereas the previous 200 years had been, with one minor exception in Libra, had been in earth signs. So it's really an era shift, an epochal shift in energy that we're experiencing here, and it's often so massive that we don't really feel it until later. We have to kind of keep checking in and looking back. So astrology helps us a lot with that, because it can give us some time markers to refer to. So as I mentioned before, go back to December 2020. Notice what was happening in your life, what started, what was something that was really new and fresh in this Aquarian energy, and how's that being instigated now? How's that being developed now? This also will come with a sort of pinch of fear, because we've got Pluto in the mix, and Pluto is always where we feel afraid, where we feel it can be around issues of control, whether it's our own need for control or being controlled by others that has us in a state of fear or a state of resistance to that. But Pluto is going to go in and really transform things quite dramatically. And I think, starting at this new moon, it's worth really paying attention to what's going on. Very importantly, also paying attention to how you are integrating into this whole new climate. How do you fit into this world of technology, which is going to involve a lot of surveillance? And we've already seen that since Saturn moved into Aquarius, these 2.5 years ago. And that movement of Saturn into Aquarius, which, by the way, was already in March of 2020, that was the whole beginning of this pandemic and the lockdown, which is very Saturnine. That energy is going to be amplified by Pluto when it moves through there. So we're already getting this message. And during this new moon, we've got Saturn conjunct Venus as well. So all 4 planets being in Aquarius, we're really looking at something to do with control around money, issues around our values and around social connections, our society, networking, the future, and of course the internet and all the technology that is coming along so rapidly. Chat GPT didn't exist 2 years ago, and now it's huge. It's going to get to the stage where you're going to start to wonder, if it can write an entire university paper, then what does a degree mean anymore? What does it mean to actually get credit for doing research or writing something if an AI is doing it for you? There's even instances of people asking the AI to give it really good chat-up lines for their online dating, because they're useless at talking to women or men, and so they ask them, what can I say, what's funny, make it funnier, make it charming, make it sexier, and their responses are immediately, within seconds, they get a really interesting human sounding response, and they just copy paste it into their dating app. So what does that mean? We're going to have a whole bunch of people who actually can't dare to meet in real life because they've created this whole online persona, which is so inaccurate. It's not a reflection of them, and they may never have had an original thought in their life, so it's a crazy time we're in. So what is your place in this? This is in the first degree, moving into the second degree of Aquarius. This is what is my place in all of this? Interestingly, this is in Uttarashadha Nakshatra. This is a really interesting message, I think, for this Pluto era in Aquarius, and already this moon is telling us very strongly that It, of course, is the same place, exact same place where Jupiter and Saturn met 2 years ago. So I'm going to read to you the life lessons according to Victor Kara, who wrote a really fantastic book on the traditional way of viewing these nakshatras and helping to understand the context of the nakshatra and the meaning behind it. And so this will represent the moon, the sun, and Pluto in what I'm saying here. The most significant life lesson we get from this sutra is this: as long as we conceive of ourselves as beings whose self-interest is fundamentally distinct and divorced from one another, we will wind up in some form of warfare, fighting to control the resources of the world. It is only when consciousness finds a singular, unifying center that it can exist without warfare and struggle. The Vedas describe that singular, unifying center as Paramatma, the ultimate self. A less lofty lesson is that if you want victory, you have to fight. You cannot conquer anything without being strong and showing that strength openly. If you're afraid to step forward and stake your claim, you will never conquer or win anything. This sutra also explains that the best way to win a fight is to increase your awareness and improve your perceptions, aiming to be aware of everything. Thus, it is not exactly muscle and might that wins the battles we truly need to fight. It is intelligence, awareness, and strategy. The more we know about the world, the more easily we can conquer it. Ultimately, when we realize the unity in all things, we can effortlessly achieve victory, not by conquering others, but by harmonizing with everyone. I just find that remarkable given what we're going through right now and the messaging that we're getting with Pluto entering into Aquarius very soon. We are really barely 2 months away from that at this Aquarius New Moon. And so I invite you to really explore what is going on in my relationship to technology. What is my relationship to security, to the society that I live in? I think when we find Pluto going through Aquarius, we're going to be potentially moving from the fear of the shifting structures and power organizations and governments and banking and all of the familiar things that we've had since the end of 2007 towards a fear of society itself. And that's quite a tragedy. It can be a massive reorganization of society. But I suspect also that science will play such a strong role that we're going to be in a situation where it becomes very difficult to stand up individually. Groupthink is a really big problem with Aquarius. One of the shadow aspects of Aquarius is sort of subsuming yourself into a group, overriding all of your instincts and overriding your desires and what it is that you know to be right. So don't let that happen. Make sure that you stay aware. Stay aware of what is real. Stay aware of what is necessary, what it means to be human, what it means to be in a society, and particularly what it means to be in a relationship with technology that we don't necessarily control. So I suspect it's a good time to get serious about your money with Venus conjunct Saturn, and to recognize that there's maybe a new way that we need to organize our finances in such a way that we can be a little bit more autonomous. This is one of the ways of looking at Aquarius as well, is standing out from the crowd, being autonomous within society. And that also, of course, reflects values. So Venus in Aquarius has strong values of humanitarianism. It's a very, very interesting time to be alive. We're looking at a lot of unconventional things now. New territory. It's completely new, because even when Pluto was in Aquarius before, the other planetary aspects were very different. It's never exactly the same. You see, we're always in a unique moment of time. So we can look a little bit towards history to understand things, but it will never be what it was. We're moving forward. We're not moving into the past. We're not moving towards something that's already happened. So we can use this inspiring and uplifting energy of this new moon in a lovely trine to Mars, very energizing, very confidence-inspiring, giving us a feeling of being able to start something, being able to now move forward, since Mars has been, for the last couple of months, retrograde, hanging back. Keep in mind that it's going to be at the same degree roughly until the 24th, and so until really essentially the middle of the week following the new moon. It means that you won't really have that sense of moving forward until about that time, but you're already getting a sense of being unstuck This is definitely a new moon where you can make plans, set intentions, think big, write things down in a way that you can keep referring back to them. Keep a note of the timeline as well. So keep looking back at the timeline and keep checking how the progress is, what's going on, how are things moving in your life? Are they moving in the direction that you want them to? So we're all feeling inspired in a way that we haven't for many, many years. But again, we live in a context, a global context that is quite terrifying. It's quite frightening. So very important that you don't allow yourself to feel really gloomy and fearful. This Mercury is actually in a semi-square with Saturn, which is challenging because it can have you feeling a little bit sort of negative and really just dwelling on what's not working, what's wrong. Don't fall into that trap. Mercury in Capricorn can be extremely pragmatic, so use that pragmatic energy to prepare yourself for the future. And from my perspective, I always advise people, and certainly my own practice is to look at the long game, look at our very tiny, tiny role in the entire universe, and recognize that whatever is born is going to die. And so we have this fleetingly short life. And it's always better to try and assimilate the bigger truths of life into what it is that we're experiencing, rather than go deeper into the nitty-gritty and start focusing on these very temporal, mundane things that are usually a drag and genuinely not going to help anybody. So reflect back on the last 2 years and also plan ahead for the next 6 months going forward until we get to the Aquarius full moon, which comes 6 months down the line when the sun is in Leo. And of course we've got the shorter scale, which is 2 weeks until the Leo full moon. And so you can examine, what do I want to accomplish in these 2 weeks? What am I going to set out right now to organize and change? How can I restructure something to do with this Aquarian energy in my life, and see how that manifests 2 weeks from now? Keep referring back to that and keep noticing that all of these things are taking us step by step forward to the point that Pluto is going to remain eventually by 2024, 2025 in the sign of Aquarius. And this is going to be more like a preview of all of that. So if you think of 2023 as a kind of a way of showing you the way forward when the major changes happen in 2025, 6, 7, really now this is something that you can take baby steps with and plan ahead, plan to change, plan to look forward, plan to innovate. This is all that Aquarius is asking us to do. At the same time, Mercury is squaring Jupiter, so don't believe promises that are being made to you, and also don't make promises that you can't keep. Just keep that in mind. We do, again, have to refer back to this time in life where we're not really being told the truth in most areas of life, and we have to really go through carefully and try and figure out what is the truth. Again, my practice is to simply suspend beliefs, suspend opinions, because we need more information than usually we're given. Certainly don't come to snap decisions. Jupiter is also in a lovely sextile to Mars at this time, which can have you inspired, but also can have you sort of acting impulsively, or there can be events that are impulsively just kind of triggered. And again, it's Jupiter-Mars. It's a Mars-ruled Jupiter, and so that can, of course, involve some kind of struggle, or potentially, of course, military action as well, because this is the nature of what we're experiencing right now. And so all of this is to be expected, and what we can do is try and organize ourselves in such a way that we become more resilient and that we become less dependent on the fluctuations of the world around us. With Mercury in Capricorn, be careful of stubborn opinions. Be careful of thinking that you already know. So this is the other aspect of the Mercury in conjunct Mars, particularly because that Mercury is ruling Mars, and that stubbornness of Capricorn can have you stop questioning. It can have you believe that you already know, that you are the authority. And so do keep in mind that we don't have all the answers, and it's actually a much more scientific way of living to assume that we don't know and allow ourselves to explore step by step. That's truly Aquarian energy. A true scientist doesn't want to confirm his or her biases. A true scientist wants to know the truth. So if we come at something with an open mind, and we come at something with the assumption that we really don't know, then we can actually learn. Then we can genuinely advance through life. And this is the future that Aquarius is asking us to live. So once again, if you want to join me on Sunday for that workshop where I can go through all of these things live with you, what's going on in 2023, how can we experience this, how can we overcome some of these stresses and tensions that we're living through, and most importantly, what's going on in your chart. For those of you who want to, you can have a mini reading with me at that session, and all of the details for registering via Eventbrite are down below this video. So let's have a look now at the sign-by-sign effects of this new moon in Aquarius. So Aries, this is happening in your 11th house, and now your ruler Mars is direct, so everything is possible again. It's very frustrating being an Aries that feels stuck and unable to move forward in life. So now things are going to really shift. Definitely until the 22nd, when finally Uranus goes direct, you're going to find that things are just moving a little bit slower forward, but it's not really the accelerated pace that you're used to. Mercury is direct as of the 18th, and so that's also going to improve all of the different aspects of your chart that have been kind of held back, especially relating to career matters. Mercury has been in your career house since December, and it's been in its shadow of retrograde since the 8th of December, so probably you've been feeling that maybe all through the month of December things haven't really been panning out for you. And the shadow ends as of the 7th of February. So you're still going to be covering old territory in many ways, but it's definitely with a fresh perspective. So I would wonder if you'll get some maybe new opportunities in career, or you'll have a new drive in terms of what it is that you're doing in your career. This can also, of course, affect your public life. That can include marital status and things like that. And so any aspect of that in your life is going to be open to better channels of understanding and communication. Where the new moon is happening is also really supportive for career, because you've got that in your 11th house, where it's also a house of money. It's the money you earn from the thing that you do. And we've got also Venus and Saturn there. So it looks like potentially there are some relationship things that might be coming to an end. Venus is conjunct Saturn just hours after this new moon, and also in Aquarius in the 11th house. And so there could be some feeling of an ending of a cycle. That could be a financial cycle as well, some ending of an income opportunity or something that has been a source of income for a while, or just a need to reorganize that, a need to get that sorted. And if it's a relationship, then, relationships do cycle in and out phases in life, not necessarily permanently. So just allow that to be something that's happening that doesn't, take up too much of your space, because it can be easy to be a bit melancholy when Venus is conjunct Saturn, and getting a little overly sentimental, potentially, or overly sad around certain things in regards to relationships. But this is only temporary. It happens over a space of a few days. And think of it as a reset. Think of it as something that's recharging relationship rather than necessarily damaging. With Mars in the 3rd house now going forward, you are still in the danger zone for blurting things out and for speaking in a way that might be potentially conflictual or harsh. Of course, Mars is also in conjunct that Mercury in your 10th house. And so, again, just hold your horses. If you do need to discuss something, make sure that you have thought it through really carefully, so that you don't necessarily say something that might be a cause for burning bridges. However, from a business point of view, Mars in your 3rd house is extremely helpful. And because it's in a really favorable trine to this new moon, it could really launch something very interesting for you. This can also have something to do with siblings. If there's some dynamism around siblings, that could be in the life of a sibling or a cousin, or it could be with regards to you and in that relationship with this person. And so, again, lots of dynamism and change. It's very harmonious with this new moon. The only caution is that Mercury that is less than harmonious with the Mars. Mars is also in a semi-sextile to Jupiter, but Mercury is squaring that Jupiter. And so, again, keep that in mind. It can be this feeling of all systems go, and yet it can be a little bit too much at once, So it can be that you're super inspired, Mars sextiling Jupiter, especially as Jupiter is still in your first house all the way through the middle of May. It could be that you're really jumping in, perhaps after this couple of months of frustration, and just be careful that you've had your plans sorted out before, that this is an opportunity for sure to move forward, but not in any direction. So really try and plan your way forward. With Pluto conjunct this moon as well, there's definitely something affecting your career and your status and how you step out into society. And that's going to be part of the theme for the next 2 years for you. It's bordering that 10th house, 11th house cusp. So keep an eye on that, and keep an eye on what's going on around the time of this new moon on the weekend coming. And also, of course, when Pluto enters into the 11th house on the 23rd of March. So that'll give you a sort of a taste, a sort of a preview, if you like, of this new way of showing up in the world. And it is going to keep coming back and forth. So it's something with reference to status and potentially your career and how you're moving out into society, how you're showing up amongst friends, or with regards to causes or your goals and dreams, which could be changing quite dramatically once Pluto moves in that 11th house. I'll be speaking much more about that in a subsequent video for Pluto in the signs as it goes through the sign of Aquarius with regards to each ascendant. But as of this new moon, think of this as a time to start to build stability. That Venus and Saturn is telling us to build something stable, get serious about money, get serious about relationships in a way that is helping you move forward, because this is the last time that Venus and Saturn show up together in the sign of Aquarius, which Saturn rules, and we won't be seeing this for another 28 or so years. So Aries, get out your pen and paper, get out your vision board, or whatever it is that you do to look forward into life, and enjoy this moment of forward momentum after a long time kind of spinning your wheels. I'll see you in the next video, Aries. Taurus, this is happening in your 10th house, and Venus is also there in the 10th house. So this is really quite lovely for you. I think you're going to find that there's a lot of opportunity for change. It's going to potentially push you out of your comfort zone, so bear that in mind. I think you've been feeling that anyway because of that square that we've been experiencing between Saturn and Uranus that you've been certainly playing a big role in. Nonetheless, this is a new opportunity in career, a new opportunity in social status. It could also be with regards to relationships with authority figures, including your father, for example, something new there. Especially because Venus and Saturn are conjunct there at the same time of this new moon. That can really show up as something to do with a new relationship dynamic, or something that is needing to either find its conclusion and start a new cycle, or something that is needing some rectification, some kind of resolution. And this could also be with regards to money, because of course Venus is also all about money as much as relationships and your values as well. Perhaps a need for you to recalibrate your values, especially because Mars has been going through your house of values for a long time. Since the 20th of August, Mars has been going back and forth through your second house of what matters to you, the values that you keep, as well as the money that you have. And so money issues have been a big thing. Mars is now direct at the time of this new moon, and so there's going to be a lot of momentum in that area of your life, which is so much more satisfying. That could be around family as well. Second house is also with regards to family and whatever supports you. And so maybe you've also felt that there's been some tension around relationships with family, or with whatever kind of support you're giving to family, or the fact that you might be, because Mars has been there, you're the one that's having to put so much effort into the family and sort that kind of tension, or whatever the problem is to resolve, to sort that out since basically the late summer. But now that Mars is moving forward, you've understood something. This is a great opportunity to put some boundaries in all of that. And because it's in a really favorable trine to this new moon, it's definitely an opportunity for a fresh start. Mars doesn't really move out of this range until after the 24th of January. So you're not really going to be feeling a major shift of momentum probably until early February. But take advantage of it nonetheless, because it's really an opportunity for you to feel like you're moving on after a period of really not being able to accomplish very much. As of the 18th of January, Mercury is also moving direct, and this is extremely supportive as well of moving forward, particularly in the house of higher mind, higher thinking and education, your philosophy of life, but also your sense of purpose. And so there can have been a feeling of not really being able to move forward in all of those areas. The ninth house is usually very inspirational. When Mercury is retrograde there, it can be that you've lost your sense of purpose or orientation for a while. And now this period of reflection is over. You may have got a sense of it again. And now there's this new engine that's revving and going to help take you forward into that. And once Mercury moves into your 10th house in February, then you're going to be able to really feel that you're moving out into your career, into your status, into what it is that you're doing. And so this new moon is going to show you the way. It's kind of like starting that process where Mercury will then continue that process in the weeks ahead. So it's a really good opportunity to keep looking outward into the world at large. How do I fit in? How can I show up? And with Venus and Saturn there as well, potentially also concluding some things. It can be a little bit of a sense of letting go. That can also, with Venus, Saturn, there can be a certain amount of, sadness, a real melancholy around loss of relationship or potentially loss of money, meaning that something is ending. But it can be an end of a cycle that is quite normal. Relationships are always cycling in and out, just like our finances, always cycling in and out. And so don't get too caught up in all of that. Also because we've got this moon in a trine to Jupiter, and that Jupiterian energy is really going to feel expansive. It's going to feel much more positive. You're going to have a sense of an inner peace that you may not have been able to access over the last couple of months, and really touch on something that feels much more vibrant, especially because that Jupiter is also sextiling Mars in your second house. So Jupiter in the 12th, Mars in the second. And that's also bringing a lot of dynamism. The 12th house is your spiritual side, as well as it's everything that you're not seeing, everything that's behind the eyes or behind the scenes, including faraway places, foreigners, foreign lands, and so on. And so this could be also a sense of regenerating a relationship with people at afar, or if it's business related or financially connected, then it can be incidents and relationships that are far away from you. And they're taking on a new energy, which is quite dynamic, very supportive. That Pluto conjunct this new moon from your 9th house to the 10th house is showing you that over the next couple of years, there is going to be quite a lot of emphasis on this particular zone of your life. And this regards to your purpose and how you feel you want to live out your life purpose, or dharma, if you like, from the 9th house. Your sort of philosophy of life, which has been reworked since the end of 2007, and also how you show that to the world, what that means, what's your role in the world as you step out as an authority. So as Pluto is going into that house in the end of March, then you're really going to pick up on what this new moon is showing you. So take notes and start to notice hints and things coming up that can show you the way. It's a really interesting time for you to step out, potentially stepping out of your comfort zone as well. So good luck with all of that, Taurus, and I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, this is in your 9th house. This is a lovely place to have a new moon because it gives you a sense of freshness in direction. This is where Saturn has been moving back and forth since about March 23rd of 2020. Notice the date. And that has been a source of real restriction for sure, but also incredible change and learning for you. And now this new moon is imprinting something quite fresh there. It's in the early degrees of the sign and giving you an opportunity to revise and start afresh, because Saturn will not be coming through this place for another 28 or more years. And Saturn at the moment is conjunct Venus at the time, just hours after this new moon. So there's also something here that suggests that relationships are involved, that money and finances are involved in your case. And this is a good message in a way to get that sorted, get that organize that, organizing either money or sorting out relationships where they might be needing to kind of wrap up or move to another level. And this new moon is paving the way for what Pluto will be doing. And as Pluto is conjunct this new moon, it's already a hint of what's to come as of March. From end of March till mid-June, Pluto is going to be in your ninth house for the very first time. And it's now for 2023 and 2024, you're going to get this energy back and forth. So there's some connection where Pluto is in your house of shared wealth and shared resources, potentially fears, overcoming hidden psychological issues potentially, and potentially issues around death, life and death, personal transformation in a very big way. That's now showing up in the house of teaching and higher learning, and potentially you've learned something that now you can start mentoring others with, that you know, Gemini, you're all about teaching. It's really a great role for you, and this is all trining your ascendant. Your ruler Mercury is now direct in that 8th house, and so there's something that you've been learning quite intensively over the last few weeks, certainly since early December. And now you've understood something and you can bring it forward. And that Mercury is in a tense inconjunct aspect to the Mars that's in your first house of self. So there may have been some need for talking about things that might have to do with shared resources and how you spend money, maybe how you show up in relationships, issues around marriage potentially. With that Mars moving direct in your first house, there might be less aggravation than you may have experienced over the last couple of months as Mars has been retrograde. That can have you super dynamic, and just beware that it can also have you sort of biting off more than you can chew, because that Mars is trining this new moon. You just might sort of want to jump out into something, but be careful, Gemini, because you often sort of leap before you look, and Jupiter is in your 11th house. That can have you feeling that everything's possible, the world is your oyster, and yet you haven't lined up your little ducks in a row. So line up the ducks in a row now and use this energy of mid-January, sort of from the new moon until the full moon comes in Leo 2 weeks afterwards, and use this to really understand where you're going. What's my direction? This new moon is... That's my dog waking up. The new moon is in this area of life that is your purpose, your sense of long-term direction. And so looking at that, what it is that you can actually plan for yourself going forward will make all of the other steps much more clear. So good luck with all of this, Gemini, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hey Cancer, this new moon, your ruler, is in the 8th house of your chart, and so there's a fresh start in terms of how you share money with others. That can be the money that you get from people that you work with, for example, or from clients. That can also be understanding fears as well, understanding something that has been really challenging you over the last couple of years, that Saturn has been there since March of 2020. And we've had this really long period of time with Saturn there, restricting a lot of that energy, restricting money and support coming from others, restricting our sense of possibility, potentially, again, fears and, you know, the existential fears that we might be having. But it's establishing something very long term, and this new moon is highlighting something that can change in that direction. So launching something at this time is really fantastic, kind of taking all the lessons that Saturn has been teaching you over the last 2+ years and putting that now into a new dynamic energy, a new forward momentum. Pluto is conjunct this new moon, and it's been in that 7th house since the end of 2007 of relationships and transforming the way you show up in relationships, transforming the actual people in your life, transforming business partnerships as well, and giving you much more of a sense of your own personal power due to perhaps a long-term power struggles with some people. Now it's going to be hovering over the point of this new moon for a very long time. So for the next 2 years, this energy, which has already been provoked in December of 2020, when Saturn and Jupiter conjunct at that 0-degree point of Aries, this is going to be triggered for 2 years by Pluto moving back and forth over there. So really pay attention to the things going on at this time, because it's going to show you a lot about the way forward over the next 20 years while Pluto is going to transit that house, even before Pluto shows up there. So we've had a few kind of life lessons. If you listen to the introduction, you'll hear more about that. And we're able to now understand that and use that energy, take that forward consciously, use this new moon to set something in forward motion. both for the next 2 weeks to come, but also for the next 6 months to come until we get to the Leo full moon as we get into the summer. Saturn is conjunct Venus, so Saturn is ruling this moon, and Venus meets up exactly with Saturn only hours after this moon. And this is something that stands out as issues around money, which is definitely an 8th house issue that may have been brewing for quite a long time. And also this potential need to rectify all of that, to get things, put things in order around money, create a new system, put some organization into your financial structure, recognizing where you need to show up more and depend on others less in terms of your finances. And of course, this can have something to do with relationships. That could be with regards to business partners or marital partners, or it could even be clients. With Saturn and Venus there is definitely an adjustment necessary, and it could be that something is coming to a closure, or at least a chapter is closing. We won't see Saturn in this area of the chart for another 28, 29 years. So very much a feeling of something logically concluding now. Something is ending and you're moving in a very new direction. This will be seen when Pluto moves into that 8th house. I'll be doing a video about that very soon, and so you'll understand a lot more in depth what that all represents. But as it is right now, this is very much about a fresh start in that area of life that is really quite challenging. It's psychologically and emotionally quite challenging, as well as materially, because it challenges finances. But this new moon is in a really harmonious energy with Jupiter in your 10th house of career and how you show up in the world. And so there's definitely positivity around this fresh start. It's also in a lovely trine with Mars, and that supportive Mars energy is really going to give you the spunk and the drive that you need to go forward. Mars in the 12th, especially retrograde, is challenging, especially psychologically, emotionally. There's just a kind of a background itch that can't be scratched, and that's been since the 20th of August. The retrograde has been the last couple of months, and now Mars is moving forward, and a lot of dynamism is coming through this. And at the same time that Mars is in conjunct Mercury, which is also moving forward now from your 7th house. So this could be just temporarily, just for a little while, maybe a week around the time of this new moon, a period of time where you need to clarify things with partners, clarify things with around business contracts or around business deals, particularly so if those people are from foreign lands or from far away, or if there's any kind of deception that you feel has been going on, or that you may have been not so clear with others. Now it really needs to be cleared up, and as you move forward over the next few weeks, all of that unlocks and it moves on, and you won't see Mars here for another 2 years, and so you can feel that energy will be lifting until the 25th of March when it finally moves into your 1st house. I'll tell you lots more about that in the weeks to come. So enjoy as things start to unlock themselves for you. Enjoy this feeling of something very inspiring coming after a long time of not feeling inspired. And I'll speak to you in the next video. Bye, Cancer. Leo, this new moon is in your 7th house. So wow, big things happening in relationships of all kinds, business and personal. This is excellent for business partnerships, by the way, of course, for relationships as well, particularly because we've got Venus, Saturn in there organizing things and getting clear, finding clarity around that. That clarity can come as much from beginnings as endings. With Venus, Saturn, it can be a little bit of a challenge in relationships or some kind of restriction. That can be cyclical. It can be something that comes and goes in relationships of all kinds, not necessarily the actual ending of a relationship, although for some of you that might be. And this can be some emotional challenge around that. But there is a lot of supporting energy here with that new moon in a lovely sextile to Jupiter in your house of higher mind and philosophy. It's a very inspiring place to have Jupiter. So I suspect that it's actually going to be relatively freeing or uplifting for you, however that shows up. This moon is also in a trine to Mars in your 11th house of friends and your future plans. So Mars is now direct, yay, after a very long time of being frustrating and slow in that area of life. And so now you're really going to move forward, potentially in projects regarding social issues or friendship groups or networks, or just the way that you see yourself going forward. That can be super dynamic for money as well, because that's a money house. It's money coming from the thing that you do, and maybe you're feeling more dynamic and more creative in that regard. Also, especially because Mercury has been in your sixth house retrograde, and that's the house of work. Probably slowing things down there, maybe having some issues around work that haven't been really clear or haven't been really helpful. And Mercury is in conjunct this Mars, which means that there's definitely something to resolve or clarify, potentially a difficult conversation to be had. Something needs adjusting between your day-to-day life and how you plan to move forward with your life. And this is something that you want to pay attention to, because it will last for a few days, but it's especially highlighted around the time of this new moon. And so that Mercury is now moving forward and bringing new opportunities in your everyday life. This, of course, includes health, by the way. It includes your day-to-day habits. And, are those helpful for you? Are they working for you? This is what Mercury has been asking you to reflect on. And then also conjunct this new moon is Pluto. And Pluto is going to be moving back and forth between your house of health and your house of relationship for the next 2 years. So pay attention to the signs that this new moon is bringing you. Definitely something really interesting coming in through relationships. Some new way perhaps of showing up in relationship. And, bear in mind what I've said in the introduction to these videos. I think it's worth listening if you are one of those people who skip that. It's always really good background information. I can't give it all 12 times over. So do listen to that, because this is going to be a way forward into the next 20 years of Pluto going into your house of relationship. And when Pluto moves in there, everything is going to change. It's a significant transit, especially for all of the fixed signs, but in your case, very impactful in the 7th house of relationship. I'll be doing another video on Pluto moving into Aquarius very soon, and so please look out for that, because there'll be a lot more information in that will give you a sense of what to look forward to. But start planning now. Get a sense of what can change, what's fresh and dynamic, and how that might all pan out in your relationships and how you want that to look going forward. It's a great time to be conscious. Your ruler is the sun, so this is you showing up in relationships in a new way. And so good luck with all of that, Leo, and I'll see you in the next video. Virgo, this new moon is showing up in the 6th house, which is the natural house of Virgo, and so it's a familiar territory for you. It's also at a time when your ruler, Mercury, is now finally moving direct after 3 weeks of being retrograde, and so you're going to really feel a new dynamism that you haven't really been able to tap into. You may have been feeling quite tired and quite overwhelmed in the last few weeks, and now you're going to be able to have a sense of moving forward and being more productive in your day-to-day life. This new moon is also conjunct Pluto, and Pluto has been in your 5th house for a very long time, since the end of 2007, and that is going to be an area that overlaps the 6th house of health and everyday life, your schedules and how you show up at work and who do you work with and all of those questions. And so that back and forth is going to happen through 2023 and 2024. Use this time of the new moon to understand what's changing. See what shows up in your life around this time, including in the world around you, and start to tap into that. Definitely listen to the introduction to this video, because these bigger trends and the bigger sense, the bigger meaning behind these new moons are explained in the introduction part. I can't do it each time separately. But just keep in mind, take notes and notice what's going to change. Notice what's moving you forward in your house of health and day-to-day work. Something big has to change for you in 2023. This is preparing the way for Pluto to enter this part of your chart for the very first time on the 23rd of March. So you're getting a bit of a signal of how to move forward. Of course, Saturn has already been there since March of 2020. And it's been showing you lots of things that need changing, lots of ways that you need to reorganize yourself. Now, Venus is conjunct Saturn, and it's like consolidating all of that, particularly with regards to your relationships, how you show up, what do you value, especially in the 6th house of, everyday input, and also with regards to money as well. So getting clear about all of those things will really help you at this time. And this will be the last time that Saturn passes through this part of your chart for 28 or 29 years, and this will certainly be the last time Venus meets Saturn for that length of time. So it's a very, very much ending something and moving into something very new, very different. So really pay attention to these next couple of weeks. It's going to give you a lot of information about how to go forward. At the same time, this new moon is in a really lovely and very supportive sextile to Jupiter in the 8th house. And Jupiter in the 8th is giving you new opportunities of earnings and potentially getting earnings from other people's money or support from other people in a way that you've not had before. And when we tie this into Mars in trine to this new moon, we also get a new dynamism around your career and how you show up in the world. So there's so many messages here about big things shifting in your life and how you are going to participate in both the nitty-gritty of your life and also in your social role. Much more dynamism now in that 10th house of career because Mars has been retrograde for the last couple of months, and having you feel like you're spinning your wheels, nothing's changing, or it's all just a slog, or maybe there's been conflicts with people that you have to work with, especially superiors at work. Or if it's not conflicts, it's adjustments, some need to stand up for yourself potentially. And also with that Mars going through there, whether it's retrograde or moving forward, it's really been teaching you something about ambition. What are you ambitious for? How do you want to show that ambition in the world? And Mars is now moving forward at this time, so a really great period of time between now and the 25th of March, where Mars is going to help you step by step move forward with new ambitions based on what you've understood over the last couple of months while it's been retrograde. So don't bite off more than you can chew. This is an aspect that can have you really dynamic, especially with that energy of Jupiter, which, by the way, is also sextiling that Mars. There can be this like superhero kind of energy saying, I'm going to do it all, but just don't hold back. Not to say don't step forward. Of course, this is a great time to do that, but just don't overdo it, because it looks like you've had quite a number of setbacks and health challenges and day-to-day struggles over the last, say, 2.5 years with Saturn moving through your 6th house. It's not an easy transit. I've been there before. It's not easy. And so pat yourself on the back. Make sure that you take the time that you need to go forward. Don't rush forward. And in this case, you'll find that progress is inevitable, but you must respect your own needs. You must respect your health when you go forward. So it's all possible for you now, Virgo. Don't despair. The worst is behind you, I think. And so you're going to feel a lot more dynamism in the couple of years to come. Good luck with all of it, and I'll see you in the next video. Libra, this new moon is happening in your 5th house. It's a wonderful place for a new moon. This is one of the fun houses, and it's a place where you can feel a heightened sense of creativity or a heightened sense of freshness around all aspects of creative expression and self-expression. And that, of course, includes what you create in terms of the physical creation, like children or a business or some project that you're launching. So a very good time for that, something that is supported by this lovely sextile with Jupiter in your house of partnerships, as well as a trine in the 9th house of where do I want to go with my life. And so this is super inspiring energy for you, Libra. I think it's going to be a real feeling of fresh starts. Because you're an air sign, you're getting the best of this new moon. And I think after months of feeling stuck, you're going to really feel like things are going in your direction now. Venus is participating in this same house. So you've had Venus in Aquarius the last few weeks, and now Venus is going to be exactly conjunct Saturn just hours after this new moon. So your ruler conjunct Saturn can have you feeling like, well, now I need to put order in something. I need to get serious about something that can have something to do with money or relationships of some kind. But in the 5th house, that can also be about, what do I want to do that's nice and fun and beautiful? How do I participate creatively in the arts or in something of an expression that is adding to beauty? This is all that you're looking for in life in many ways, through whatever it is that you do. And Saturn is very good for you, Libra, because it's exalted in your sign. And so Saturn tends to work very well for you, especially we have to see if it's a day or a night chart in your case. But Saturn is giving you a sense of structure, because often there is this ambivalence, this kind of tendency to go back and forth over things and not being able to choose. Now Saturn is saying, sort this out wherever Venus is active, whether that be through relationships or through money or your values. Sort this out now. This is a new opportunity that you're getting. Also at this new moon, we've got Pluto conjunct from Capricorn, from your 4th house. The next couple of years, 2023 and 2024, are going to show you where things are shifting. So from the house of family and home, and literally your home physically where you live, and into the house of children and creativity and fun and hobbies and so on. And that could be also business if you are an entrepreneur. There's something powerful that's shifting there. This new moon is showing you, it's giving you a glimpse into that future, into what Pluto is going to be changing for you. So pay attention, take notes, see what's going to change, because definitely something is going to be very, very different in your life as you go forward. This can bring in new lovers, new opportunities for love. It can be really, really stimulating after 2.5 years of having Saturn there, which has perhaps had you feeling a bit shut down. And so Saturn is moving on. You will not have Saturn here for another 28 or 29 years, giving you a sense of what is really, what it was that you wanted to create, and were you able to find that creativity in yourself, even through challenge and challenges, especially potentially in your love life. And now Pluto is going to go in and transform that. So something very, very powerful, which could have the effect of bringing somebody new in your life, particularly because of that Jupiter in your 7th, and it's there until the middle of May. That would have to be seen by your individual chart, but it certainly looks good from the outside. And then, of course, that ninth house Mars is having you feeling inspired. And so now maybe there's this opportunity that you haven't really felt for a long time as Mars is going forward. When Mars is retrograde in the ninth house, it's just kind of like not really feeling excited about things, or really feeling like that everything seems to be slow or stuck in that regard. The ninth house can have a relationship to publishing or higher education, or just higher thinking, your philosophy of life or learning. And now, as it's moving forward, there's a sense of fresh energy behind that. I find it very inspiring at this new moon, especially for the air signs. So there can be, just for a few days, a period of tension, and that tension can come from your deeper emotions, or the home situation that you find yourself in, or understandings around family, for example, and how you feel about the direction you're taking in life, or how you feel about how you want to express that going forward. It's temporary, it's not a big deal, it's just that it is part of the signature of this new moon, and so worth keeping it in mind. Definitely think about what makes me happy. This is one of the big questions for Libra. What makes me happy? And use that Mars in the ninth house to inspire yourself to move forward. So make the most of this new moon, Libra. It's a really good one for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Scorpio, this new moon is happening in your 4th house, and now your ruler Mars is direct after 2 really sluggish months. You've probably been feeling like things have been a little more effort than you would rather put in, but now you're all systems go, because both Mercury and Mars are direct, and you're feeling now the energy is starting to move in your favor. This will pick up speed as we get towards the end of January, so it's a slow start, but it's a start nonetheless, and things are moving forward now in your house of marriage and business partnerships, as well as shared resources. And so I think if there's been any tension, or if there's been something that needs renegotiating, now you've understood it and you're moving forward with it. It's no longer feeling like a drag. The new moon is giving you a new opportunity around home, where you feel like you're at home, what makes you happy. And all of this has been challenged really for the last 2.5 years, since Saturn has been there since March of 2020. And so it's been a long haul for Scorpios, because you've also had the South Node in your 1st house, changing you dramatically since the beginning of 2022. And now with the shift of energy coming in, I think you're going to get a taste of what's to come when Pluto finally moves into that house at the end of March. So pay attention to the signs around the time of this new moon. There's a lot going on in this 4th house, and it's been very dynamic for you. It's been a very big focal point in your life the last couple of years. It will continue to change in a very, very big way that will change all areas of your life as of the end of March. And so I'll do a separate video on Pluto, because there's just so much to say. Look out for that in the days to come. But nonetheless, the Pluto that is in your 3rd house, and has been in the 3rd house of communications and siblings, and how to organize yourself in an everyday way. Lots of traveling, lots of busyness, lots of change in the way that you show up for yourself through the way you speak and the way you communicate. All of that is adding to this new moon by conjunction. So Pluto is still in the 3rd house, but it's going to go back and forth over this point for the next 2 years. 2023 and 2024 are going to be this kind of juggling act between your third and fourth houses. And now this new moon is giving you an indication of what it is that's starting afresh, what it is that you want to look at. It's an opportunity to really understand something that you've learned through this passage of Saturn over the last couple of years. With Venus there, conjunct Saturn at just hours after this new moon, you also have this opportunity now to really examine what it is that you value, genuinely what makes me happy, and also issues around money, like it could be around how you spend money or money as regards the home. This can be relationship issues, of course, as well, both with regards to the family, but also just in terms of work, because it's opposite your 10th house. So when things happen in the main houses of 4th and 7th, the 10th, and the first houses, those are the axes of our life. Those are the principal pillars of our life. And Venus conjunct Saturn there is really asking you to get serious about these things, get serious about relationship, get serious about money and values and so on. This is in a really harmonious aspect to that Mars that's in the 8th house, so your ruler. It's in a trine. It's going to give you lots of energy. That's very, very favorable for making changes in a number of ways. It's very dynamic, and so it can have you feeling like now you can go forward. As Jupiter is also in a really favorable aspect, both to this new moon as well as to that Mars, you're also getting a real boost in your everyday work life and in your health as well. If health has been an issue for you, Jupiter is really giving you a lot more energy and dynamism in that 6th house. If you've been having challenges in terms of any kind of legal issues or staffing issues or issues with colleagues, this is a really good period of time, and especially now to understand how your emotional nature or your own perhaps sense of aggravation, things that you hadn't explored about yourself, has been affecting all of that. With the Mercury now going direct in your 3rd house of communication, this will also make that easier, because Mercury is now moving forward in a really beneficial part of your chart. Mercury rules the 3rd house naturally, and so it's a really good opportunity to put a lot of clarity in the way that you show up in communication and how you're doing your day-to-day work. Even things like traveling or how you communicate through meetings and how you need to express yourself, this is all going to be improved by this Mercury direct going the next couple of weeks going through your 3rd house. So I do see this as a really interesting time for you, a bit of a breath of fresh air after quite a lot of struggle. Take lots of notes, Scorpio, because what is showing up for you at this time is really going to show up for you in spades over the next 20 years as Pluto is moving through that 4th house. It's a really good opportunity to reflect on the last couple of years that Saturn has been showing you what's needing to change in that 4th house of home and family and your emotional security. Because Pluto is going to go in there and transform that in a really powerful way. Good luck with all of that, Scorpio, and I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 3rd house. This is a really dynamic place to have a new moon. There's a lot of fresh starts around areas that may have felt a little challenging over the last couple of years that Saturn has been passing through since March of 2020. And you really do have a really fantastic dynamism now in this area of your life. Do listen to the introductory part of this video, because it does explain a lot of the background in this energy of Aquarius. You are being shown something about what's going to change in your surroundings, in your way of communicating with people, in your sense of your skills and your aims and goals in life when Pluto moves into this area. So Saturn has been reorganizing that for the last 2.5 years. Now Pluto's going to come in and transform it powerfully. You could potentially become a very powerful speaker. You could show up in a way that's extremely powerful through communication, through education, teaching, and just also in your community, showing up in a much more significant way in your community. Notice what this new moon is telling you, because that's going to give you some real details into how that shows up in your life over the next 20 years that we're going to have Pluto there. Pluto is conjunct this new moon, and so it's quite significant. It's been reshaping your house of values, the 2nd house, and the house of money, your relationship to money, since the end of 2007. And when Pluto is transiting through 2023 and 24, it's going to be going back and forth through the 2nd house of values and money, including your family and all the transformation that has undergone, and into your 3rd house. It's going back and forth there. So we keep taking those lessons back and forth. What are we learning? What needs to change? What did we understand? What do we need to bring forward? Pluto is going to be very, very powerful as an agent of change in your chart in this area of life. Take lots of notes of what's going on around you at this time, particularly around the time of the new moon and the following 2 weeks while we move into the full moon of Leo. And then you've got Mercury going direct now in your second house of money. So that adds to that emphasis of Pluto there, having been there for such a long time. Mercury was retrograde there, so maybe there have been issues around money that required your attention, that needed to be reorganized, how you show up for money, how you value money. And that forward-moving Mercury in the second house is in conjunct Mars in your seventh house. And that Mars has been kind of challenging relationships, or it's been making you really have to renegotiate territory or boundaries in relationships, potentially causing some difficulties or attracting people into your life that are provocative, giving you lots of dynamism in relationship. It can also have been very pleasant for you. This, of course, depends on your chart, can be very passionate in relationships. But that Mars is in a tense aspect for about a few days around this new moon with that Mercury, all about communication. And so avoid, exploding around issues regarding relationships, around values and money. Perhaps things do need to be said, but Sagittarius, you have a tendency to be quite blunt. And your ruler, Jupiter, is currently ruled by this Mars and in sextile to that Mars. It's also in sextile to that Mercury. And so there's a very strong impulsive energy, and you are naturally quite impulsive and expansive and all those wonderful things. But it can be that you create some friction or some challenges. I do see this as potentially very inspiring because that Jupiter, your ruler, is in the fifth house, which is a wonderful place. It's fun, it's very dynamic, and it's also in a really lovely aspect, sextile to the moon, that suggests that whatever is starting now, whatever fresh ideas and fresh energy is coming in, is going to be quite positive for you. That Saturn conjunct Venus in Aquarius in the third house along the same time as the new moon is going to also show you that there might be something new that needs to shape up in terms of how you show up in your day-to-day life, how you show up in terms of the ways that you connect through partnerships in your siblings, with your neighbors, in your community, and so on. And although it's fleeting, it's going to be quite significant. It is important. It's leaving a lasting impression because it will be the final time that these two meet up for about another 28 or 29 years. It's quite significant. Saturn will never pass through this part of your chart again for nearly 3 decades. And so we're really wrapping things up. We're bringing them to a head and needing to get serious about certain things. Venus rules your sixth house of everyday work. And of course, that's very important in terms of how you show up in your everyday life. So there's something there potentially about communication and what you value in all of that area of life. And of course, Venus rules your 11th house of community as well as your future goals and plans. And so there's maybe a story in there for you to look at as well. Good luck with all of this, Sagittarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening in your second house. It's all about money and your income, as well as everything that you consume in many ways. It can also have something to do with the family, and so something new happening in that area of your life. This is an area where your ruler, Saturn, has been moving for the last 2.5 years. So this is not unfamiliar territory to you. And it's also one of the reasons Capricorn is known to be so good with money, because Saturn rules that second house, and you're pretty good with organizing your finances and all the important things. You have your provisions ready. You make sure your pantry is stocked with food and so on. This is what gives Capricorn its very pragmatic air. And so it's something that is coming up fresh. It's a new way of looking at all of the lessons that Saturn has been teaching you over the last 2.5 years in this regard. And with this new moon there, you're going to have a new sense of dynamism. Venus is there with your ruler, Saturn. It's going to be exactly conjunct just hours after this new moon. And Venus in the second house can bring new opportunities financially, or this could be something to do with understanding what you need to reorganize around your money, around your values, or around your relationships, of course. And with Pluto conjunct this new moon from your first house, you're understanding something about how you have changed since the end of 2007, how Pluto has completely transformed you and really reconfigured your life in many ways. And this is showing up now as a signal to what this new moon is kind of showing you about what's coming over the next 2 decades, while Pluto is going to be going through that second house for you. So this conjunction is really an opportunity for you to examine what it is that you want out of that second house going forward, because it's an opportunity to recognize what it is you can proactively transform. Of course, Pluto is going to show up a lot of ways that need to be transformed in unexpected ways, but also you can anticipate that by seeing what's happening around the time of this new moon, taking the lessons from that, and you'll start to understand what the lessons will be from late March until mid-June, when Pluto first moves through that part of your chart. It will be there, 2023 and 2024, going back and forth between your first house of self and the second house of money and values and what supports you. So you're going through this transition period in real time now in the later part of January as a kind of a fractal of what's going to be happening in the couple of decades to come. Also, in your first house of self, you've now got Mercury moving direct. So you've had a period of sort of feeling potentially that you're not communicating clearly, or that things are not really expressing themselves clearly. And now with Mercury moving forward, you definitely have an opportunity to resolve that. And there'll be a feeling of now really engaging properly in a way that you would like to in your first house of self. That's adding a lot of dynamism to your sixth house as well, where Mars has been since August of last year. And Mars is now going direct there since just earlier this week. And so when Mars is going direct in your sixth house, there's a lot more dynamism around issues that might have been felt like obstacles before. It's in a very harmonious connection to this new moon. So there's definitely a sense that things are moving on now. Things are moving forward. Perhaps having to have a period of adjustment or frustration or conflicting tensions potentially with colleagues, or a situation at work which has just really felt like a lot of effort. It feels more like it's energizing now, and that goes right through till the end of March. So use this energy dynamically in a way that has you taking action on the areas of life that you understood were needing to change, weren't able to really fulfill any kind of potential in the last couple of months. Now you really feel you can move forward. There is an inconjunct between that Mars and Mercury in your first house. So Mars in the sixth, Mercury in the first are not really engaging in a nice way. It's a itchy, sort of challenging aspect that can have potential conflicts between you and colleagues, or tensions that need resolving in communication. This can also be issues around money with regards to business, with regards to contracts and business dealing. So take your time, resolve those things. It's only a few days. This is not a big deal, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Jupiter is in a really favorable aspect to all of this. It's in a favorable aspect to this new moon. It's in a favorable aspect to Mars. It's in a square to Mercury, but still it's energizing that Mercury. What can happen with all of this favorable energy is that you start to accelerate really quickly, and you start to expand into new ideas, inspiring projects, and feeling really great. Let's go for it. Just always be careful that these aspects can really represent biting off more than you can chew. It might require a period of still cautious, forward-moving planning rather than jumping into it. But, you're a Capricorn, you know that already. I don't need to tell you. And I can see you rolling your eyes in there. So Jupiter in your fourth house is very good for family, for if you're interested in buying a home, for example. That's continuing right through the middle of May. And this could be a period of time where you start to feel inspired to do that. Having a new sense of perhaps money available, or a new potential in income that is opening up doors for you to invest in property, or decide to expand your home, or embellish your home in some way through renovation. So all looking really good for you, and it looks like obstacles that may have come through work or health are improving, and you can find solutions now easily going forward. So good luck with all of that, Capricorn, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Aquarius. So of course this is all about you. There's a lot of energy in Aquarius. There's a massive stellium there right now. So any little babies born around this time are going to have a big energy. If you're one of those big Aquarius stelliums from 1962, then hey ho, this is all about you. It's a great year to be 61. And so here we've got now a really dynamic start to a new cycle for yourself. Saturn has been doing the housekeeping and sorting out who you want to be as you show up in your life, and how you do that. Are you taking yourself seriously? Are others taking you seriously? Have you sorted out health issues and gotten clear about anything that is a feeling like an obstacle to moving into your life? Saturn is a really good opportunity, to, especially because it's your ruler, to show up in a new way for you. And Saturn is in a conjunction with Venus. And this can have you really thinking about money, thinking about relationships, working on things that might be coming to an end, a logical conclusion, or just a temporary end. That can also just be about getting serious. And so that can also have you really understanding something in relationship that needs to change, but it's very constructive. Saturn can be challenging, but is always constructive. Venus brightens you up for sure, so don't get too morose about that, although Saturn can have you feeling a wee bit pinched when it's in your first house. And this new moon is also in a really harmonious energy with your third house of communication, where Jupiter is, in a lovely sextile that can have you really feeling inspired about new business projects, commercial projects, or new educational projects. It could be with regards to your neighborhood and how you show up in the neighborhood. Or it can also be something to do with learning, new goals. You're setting yourself a new goal that you want to achieve. And Jupiter through the third house will help you achieve that. It's a really good opportunity to learn new skills, for example, or to write that book if you want to write the book. You also have Mars now moving direct in your fifth house of creativity. This is fantastic. It's in a lovely trine to this new moon, and it's trining your sign anyway. So all that energy of Mars since last August has been really creating a lot of dynamism for you. This is very inspiring, Mars through the fifth. It can also have you feeling like things that didn't really work out in terms of love, or just that feeling of creativity, and maybe even things with your kids, if you do have children, or ambitions around having children, all of that may have felt a little stuck or challenging for you in the last couple of months while Mars was retrograde. Now it's moving forward and is slowly becoming unstuck. So it will take a bit of time to pick up momentum. Certainly by the beginning of February, you're going to feel a lot of momentum. So for most of you around the time of your birthday, it's going to feel really inspiring. It's going to be really a great birthday season for you. And that Mars is staying there until the 25th of March. So you do have a lot of time still to take advantage of that dynamism, feeling revved up to start something new. You have also Mercury moving direct in your 12th house. Now, it could have been that you've been feeling psychologically a little bit restricted or confused around things, or there may have been some confusions around clarity in terms of secrets or things that were not really clear, hidden from you. Or especially if that had to do with foreigners or foreign lands or business dealings from far away, or engagements with people. It can also be the house of confinement, meaning anything from prisons through to ashrams and hospitals. So there kind of been some issues around there where you've been putting a lot of thought and attention and needing to communicate things. Well, now things are also moving forward there, and it's in a very harmonious sextile to Jupiter. So communication seems to be really supported for you right now in a way that can bring a lot of harmony to also your unconscious self, to your just a feeling of peace of mind, which can be really nice. Certainly you're going to be very busy with this dynamism between Mercury, Jupiter, and Mars at this time. You're going to be probably very, very active, very busy, but that's going to get rid of that sort of dusty, stuck feeling that Saturn may have had you experiencing over the last few months, a couple of years even, where it's been in your first house. Be sure to listen to the introduction to this video, because it's giving you a lot more background, and that would be very interesting for you as an Aquarius. I will be doing a separate video on Pluto, which is moving into your first house, and Pluto is going to be going back and forth between your 12th and your first house, basically for all of 2023 and 2024. So you're going to have a slow and steady transformation over these next 2 years, but this new moon is going to show you how. It's going to show you in a kind of a fractal way how you're going to be showing up in the next couple of years, and in fact over 20 years, while Pluto is going to be going through your first house of self and transforming you completely. So enjoy this period of time of understanding. Take lots of cues from the universe, take lots of notes, and see what's changing around you at the time of this new moon. It's going to give you lots of information that will set you up for the next couple of years to come. Good luck with all of it, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, this new moon is happening in the 12th house. You're quite familiar with this area of the chart because it feels comfortable to you. It's the natural house of Pisces in the natural zodiac, and it is something that is very much in the mystery waters of Pisces. It's in your unconscious nature. That can be in a sense of anything that feels a little bit far away or hidden from your day-to-day experience. So that can be whether it's behind closed doors or anything behind closed eyes. The intimate aspects of your life that can show up in this way as well. So this is definitely a new start there. There can be something fresh and new showing up in faraway lands or with foreigners in general. And very interesting times because you're going to have Pluto moving into that part of your chart soon in March. And Pluto will be remaining there after a kind of back and forth period in 2023 and 2024. It's going to be there for 20 years. This is giving you an entree into that, and it's going to show you a kind of a fractal of what's yet to come. And especially because you've also got Venus and Saturn conjunct at the time of this full moon, just hours afterwards. And this will really, it speaks to a lot of values that are being understood or maybe solidified and concretized. It can be around relationships or money with regards to 12th house issues. But nonetheless, it feels like something is ending so that something can begin. You won't have Saturn in this part of your chart for another 28 or 29 years. So this is significant. It's the last time Venus shows up with Saturn for that length of time. So something very interesting happening here to pay attention to over the course of this new moon and into the full moon when it's happening in Leo in 2 weeks' time. Also, Jupiter, your ruler, is in a really lovely sextile to this new moon, and it's showing up in an area of your chart which is regarding money. So money looks like it's been doing better for you in the last few weeks since Jupiter moved back into Aries at the end of December 2022. And it's supporting this lovely new moon in terms of fresh starts. Something new is beginning. And that Jupiter is also in a sextile to Mars in your 4th house of psychology and home and family, the home that you live in, as well as the physical sense of house and your psychological sense of self, what makes you happy. There's been a lot of aggravation or challenge there. There can have been quite a lot of toing and froing around home. Potentially some of you have moved, or there has been some kind of conflict with family or tensions around family or your own psychology, particularly because of that 12th house Saturn, which has been there since March of 2023. Maybe this feeling of confinement or feeling of being held back that Mars kind of exacerbated over the last few months since August when it's been there. The last couple of months Mars has been retrograde. Now it's moving forward. So much of that is unstuck. It's moving forward. It's going in a dynamic direction. So this is a really lovely new moon, I feel, to really have a sense of new beginnings, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally. What makes me happy? How am I going to act on that? How am I going to reach out into life? Have I got any conflicts in family that need to be resolved? How can I take that up a notch and do something about that? So getting serious about these things as Saturn is asking you to do, and getting dynamic about these things as Mars is asking you to do, speaking up for it because it's in Gemini, and perhaps stepping up for yourself, because Pisces is one of these signs that tends to need a nudge to stand up for yourself, need to have boundaries, and Mars is actually helpful in that regard, where for other people it can actually be a little bit too much. Nonetheless, there is a challenge between Mars and Mercury. Mercury is in your 11th house of groups and associations. It's your future dreams and hopes, and it can also be money. So Mars is in an inconjunct, and so there can be some kind of tensions or conflict around that temporarily, just for a few days around the time of this new moon. Not a big deal, but just worth keeping in mind. Now that Mercury is moving forward, where it has been retrograde for 3 weeks up until now, and as a result, you may have felt that your connection with groups or your connection, even online, things that are to do with online ventures or even money from the work that you do, it's all moving forward now after a period of being maybe a little bit touch and go or requiring a little bit of reconsideration. Pluto has already been in that house since the end of 2007. It's been completely transforming that area of your life for that length of time. And so it's not an area that is foreign to you by any stretch of the imagination. But with Mercury there, it's bringing some things to your attention. And because Pluto is conjunct this new moon, it's really something to pay attention to, because for the next 2 years, for 2023 and 2024, Pluto is going to be continuing to go back and forth between the 11th and 12th houses. And so something to do with, you know, your community, how you show up in community, your friends and networks, and your life goals is affecting the 12th house of faraway places and, again, issues of unconscious or spiritual understanding, as well as confinement and potentially loss as well. So again, all these issues are things that Pisces is born to deal with. Don't let that stress you, and keep that in mind as you go over the next couple of years, that this new moon is showing you the light. It's showing you where to put your attention and how that might shape up for you as a kind of a fractal of what to expect in 2023 and 2024. I'm definitely going to tell you a lot more about that in the Pluto and Aquarius video that's coming later this week. So I won't say too much more about that here, as there's such a lot to say. So good luck with all of this, Pisces, and have a wonderful new moon, and I'll speak to you in the next video.